Honorable Stephen Harper, Premier Ford, High Commissioner, His Excellency Vikas Swarup, members of the federal and provincial parliaments, and all dignitaries. My friends and my fellow CIF members, and I want to welcome my special friends who have flown in from Europe just to make this evening a special one for me and for Mr. Harper. Today, we take pride in honoring an outstanding Canadian leader who has truly demonstrated global leadership, vision, and personal excellence. That person is the Right Honorable Stephen Harper, the 22nd Prime Minister of Canada. In its 12-year history, this is the first time that this foundation is bestowing this award on a Canadian political visionary. And the reason is obvious. As Prime Minister, Mr. Harper understood the significance of Canada's relationship with India. He built a solid foundation for bilateral relations between our two democracies. Canada-India Foundation takes immense pride in bestowing the Global Indian Award to Mr. Stephen Harper. I'm sure some of you who have attended our previous galas, and the first one particularly, Mr. Harper was our chief guest and the keynote speaker at the 2008 event. That time he gave the award. Today is the first time it's a reverse thing is happening. He's getting the award. And Premier, maybe you might be the next one. This time you're going to give the award and maybe you are the next one receiving it. So let's give a big hand to Mr. Premier Ford. We have worked with you, sir, and the former Indian President, Dr. Abdul Kalam, to pave the way for the nuclear deal between Canada and India. There are many such instances that underscore Mr. Harper's keen desire that Canada and India become the best of friends. Friends, India recently witnessed history in the making when Mr. Prime Minister Modi won an absolute majority in the Indian elections. Everyone will agree with me that under his leadership, India will confidently march in the future. The result reflects the appreciation that most Indians have for Mr. Modi's policies. These policies are transforming India into the world's fastest growing economy and pushing hundreds of millions of Indians out of poverty. In January this year, just before the election campaign began, Mr. Harper visited India. He was in New Delhi and his tweet reflected the moods in India. I quote, "The most significant leader of India since independence, my friend Narendra Modi, is shaping every conversation on geopolitics and the global economy. For India to realize its potential, its needs, the courageous and visionary leadership of Prime Minister Modi. I'm proud to stand with him." Thank you, sir. That was very, very nicely written words. Friends, I have a lot of pages to read, but I'm sure you'll appreciate that this is one opportunity I and CIF gets with two visionary leaders of our country, sitting right in front of me. So please allow me and indulge with me. Thank you. The two main objectives of our foundation today is to foster bilateral relations and to create opportunities for qualified Indo-Canadians in the Canadian mainstream. To achieve these objectives, we have adopted a 360-degree approach. We emphasize the criticality of India and of Indo-Canadians to Canada's future. Economically, India offers Canada a large and maturing market that will reach its full potential in the next decade or so. I truly want to discuss the role of Indo-Canadians in shaping the future of Canadians. We are 1.3 million Indo-Canadians, and our numbers are steadily growing and increasing. And there are almost about 200,000 international students coming from India into Canada, pursuing higher education in Canada, thanks to our neighbors' policies. We have more and more coming. The Indo-Canadian population reflects the diversity and the complexity of India. We represent many languages, many religions, many ethnicities, and many cultures. Just as multiculturalism is inherent to Canada, it is the basis of Indian civilization. Every diasporic Indian carries within him or her this value of unity in diversity. As a people, we are proud to be different, and yet we are indeed one community. We have worked with our partners in government at all levels to advance Canada's interest in India. Let me cite a few examples, sir. CIF has advocated for a renewed engagement with Gujarat. And Prime Minister, we spoke about it today afternoon. One of the most prosperous and industrialized regions of India. Not just because I come from there, but truly. The federal government policy makers in Ottawa had adopted an inexplicably biased and misinformed position of disconnection towards Gujarat, based on totally unfounded allegations and fake media reporting. The result? Federal and provincial parliaments and politicians now regularly travel to Gujarat and engage with the Gujarat state political and business leaders. Next, by working the Civil Nuclear Cooperation file and showcasing India as a responsible user of nuclear technology and materials for civilian purposes that it demonstrably is, the result? The promulgation of the Canada-India Nuclear Cooperation Agreement after decades of isolation of India in this sphere. And once again, I would want to thank our Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, Mr. Stephen Harper, for taking that initiative and working with us. Third, by fostering support for elected officials who make the time and commitment to hear the aspirations of Indo-Canadians. These aspirations are no different from the aspirations of well-meaning Canadians to live in a free and democratic society. Agreed? To pursue meaningful economic pursuits for the betterment of our families and to ensure the security and well-being of our country. Often these initiatives require us to take a lot of action. Action to ensure that Canada continues to be the model for a secure, democratic nation, free from the whims and fancies of wayward politicians, kowtowing to the calculated demands of religious extremists and separatists, elements that exist in our society. Recently, in Canada, an Indian diplomat, was refused permission to unfurl the Indian flag at a public gathering. Permission was denied because it was deemed a sensitive issue after the city received emails protesting the unfurling of the Indian flag as it would hurt certain separatist sentiments. I'm sure, sir, every one of you will agree with me that this is totally unacceptable to allow a handful of members of a community to hold ransom Canada-India relationship. Do you agree? We as Canada-India Foundation, with some of the leaders of this community, took up this matter with the seriousness it deserved. We gathered our representatives of many Indo-Canadian organizations to educate and inform the city leaders of India's diversity as represented in the Indo-Canadian population. Canadian political leaders must have the courage to resist overtures by elements who have vested interest in preventing the strengthening of Canada-India ties. Guys, this deserves a big hand. We need our politicians to listen to us and hear us. We need better ties between Canada and India. Would you agree? Canadian politicians marching in parades, featuring placards, celebrating the disintegration of India, or by voting in on resolutions denouncing the 1984 political riots in which many Sikhs, as well as a small number of Hindus, lost their lives. Calling it a genocide are simply shameful acts of local vote bank politics. I don't think we need that, sir. We need the strength in unity. They compromise our democratic institutions, security establishment, and ultimately endanger the lives of all Canadians. And if this is going to continue, it's just a matter of time, sir, before a majority of the Indo-Canadians will follow the example of what occurred in India in 2019 elections. They will ultimately unite to vote against the politics of lies and hatred. We don't want that, sir. Friends, let me emphasize that as a Canadian organization, the Canada-India Foundation believes in the right to free speech. We believe in the right of an individual and an organization to express their political opinions, especially when such views differ with the majority. However, it's time to call out those who have continued to spread untruth to further their local political agendas. Today, the demand for an independent state is only heard in Canada, and shockingly, it is taken seriously by several political players in Canada. I'm talking about the pro-Khalistani movement. And sir, this is only happening in Canada. This is not even existent in India. Politicians in Canada continue to claim the victimization of one religious minority or another in India, but they are totally unaware or unwilling to accept the present Indian reality. Indians today are focused on pursuing economic and social goals, and the Indian state is enabling that. Their wish, their fulfillment, by doing its best to implement the policies that help rapid economic and social developments of all the Indians. Some Canadian politicians choose to ignore India's syncretic and secular traditions, which are constitutionally enshrined and have always been a way of life for majority of Indians. It's a time for all the Indo-Canadian organizations working within our growing community to consider, together to protect the common political interests of India in Canada and of Canada in India. We can all continue with our own mandates. There are so many organizations of Indian origin, too many of them. But we should all be one voice when it comes to putting an end to lies and fake news. Eventually, we should all of us consider a secular umbrella federation of all like-minded Indo-Canadians organizations. Such a united front will emerge as the political voice of the new Indo-Canadians who believe that the time is ripe to move forward to a better future. Lastly, I have a small message for you, Premier. We Canadians of Indian origin are law-abiding, hardworking, and dedicated to integrating ourselves into the Canadian mainstream. We have inherent faith in the Canadian values, and we trust the system to be just and fair. Of course, there are exceptions, but majority of us take pride in being the true Canadians. Are we? My fellow compatriots who are sitting right behind us, sir, who have made a mark in the political arena, are as competent as any other ethnic group. And it would be wholly appropriate that one of our MPPs finds a place in your cabinet. Sooner than later. Premier, I want to thank you for appointing the few Indo-Canadians as parliamentary assistants recently. And I'm sure you'll actively consider some Indo-Canadians for the cabinet position. Last but not the least, I want to thank all the sponsors who have supported us every time. Every time I spread my hands, I've got their support. But this time, it was a more overwhelming support because I got the confirmation that Mr. Stephen Harper is getting the award, and the award is being given by our Premier. Real special thanks to my CIF team, who has supported every initiative that our executive team has taken up and has helped me in particular to help grow CIF vertically and horizontally. I want to give a special thanks to Satish, Pankaj Dave, who have worked tirelessly with me to make this gala a grand success. Is this a grand success? Can I say that? There's one individual who said to me, "You cannot thank me because I'm getting paid." And that's my friend Mayank Bhatt, wherever he's sitting. I would like you guys to give him a great applause, because without his efforts and without his support, I would have never been able to put together the show. Thank you, Mayank, wherever you're sitting. I must also not forget some of my friends from the Indo-Canadian community who are aspiring to be elected in the next federal elections. Arpan, one of you, he's sitting right there. I want to wish you all the best. If I miss someone out here, and sorry, just because he isn't sitting in front, but all the best to everybody, whoever is going to contest the elections. Murari. Oh, there he is. Hi. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and presence. We have an evening full of thought-provoking speeches, entertainment, a fall-side chat with Mr. Harper. This is something new. We're going to create the Niagara Falls right here, and Mr. Harper is going to be questioned. and of course, the best Indian cuisine that you can ever have. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.